Poetic devices. So many devices and so little time. To address this conundrum, here is an introduction to 15 commonly used poetic devices. Welcome authors to Next Level Writing. You're here to learn about poetic devices, but before we begin, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get started and investigate those poetic devices. First up, alliteration. Alliteration comes from the Latin phrase litera, meaning letter of the alphabet. It's the repeated sound at the beginning of a string of words. Think Dunkin' Donuts or Krispy Kreme. The purpose of alliteration is to make a phrase either musical or memorable. And here's an example of a famous poem that uses alliteration. See if you can find the repeated sound at the beginning of words in this poem. Next up, Anaphora. Anaphora is the use of repetition of phrases or words to deliver an artistic effect to a passage. Let's have a look at an example. The purpose of anaphora is to emphasize a message or to add rhythm. This example is taken from a famous Christmas carol. See if you can find which phrase has been repeated. Now to assonance. Assonance is a poetic device in which the repetition of similar vowel sounds takes place. This repetition occurs in two or more words in close proximity to one another. The purpose of assonance is to add rhythm and create a lyrical mood. See if you can find the vowel sound which has been repeated in multiple words. And then on to consonance. Consonance is similar to assonance, except this time it refers to the repetition of the consonant sounds in a line of text. The purpose of consonance is to appeal to the reader through artistic language. Many tongue twisters use consonance, just like our example. Next up, enjambment. Enjambment is when a line of poetry carries its idea or thought over to the next line. This means that the thought or idea steps over the end of a line in a poem and into the beginning of the next line. The purpose of enjambment is to create a poem that flows freely and emphasizes unexpected beats and words for the reader. In this example, we hear the poem The Wasteland and its use of enjambment. Next up, hyperbole. Hyperbole is a poetic device that creates heightened effect through deliberate exaggeration. The purpose of hyperbole is to emphasize a quality or achievement. Many common sayings use hyperbole, so keep your ear out to see if you can find them in everyday speech. Then we have imagery. Imagery is any language used to create an image in the reader's mind. Poets will often use very descriptive language to entice the senses of the reader so that they create a very vivid image in their mind. The purpose of imagery is to create an image and evoke emotions by teasing the reader's senses. John Keats does this in this poem. Notice the descriptive language he uses and the image in your mind that is created. Straight onto juxtaposition. Juxtaposition means to be beside or very near. It's when two contrasting ideas are placed closely together, such as light and darkness or life and death. The purpose of juxtaposition is to create tension or introduce a new idea through contrast. In Dylan Thomas's Good Night, there is the use of juxtaposition. See if you can find what the two ideas are. Now to metaphor. Metaphor is a poetic device that creates implicit comparison without the express use of like or as. The purpose of metaphor is to assert that two things are identical. In the example, two ideas are presented as being the same. Straight on to onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is when a word imitates the natural sound of a thing. It creates a sound effect that mimics the thing described, making the description more expressive and interesting. The purpose of onomatopoeia is to entice the sense of hearing in order to create an image in the reader's mind, just like our example, the buzzing of the bee. Now to oxymoron. Oxymoron is a type of juxtaposition that is a direct paradoxical comparison. Some oxymorons include the living dead and deafening silence. The purpose of oxymoron is to provoke and challenge the reader. Check out how the trickster William Shakespeare used oxymoron in this poem. Next up, personification. Personification is the poetic device that gives ideas, objects, or animals human characteristics. The purpose of personification is to connect the reader to ideas that can be challenging to understand. Emily Dickinson uses personification here to make death a little bit easier to understand. It's time to rhyme. Rhyme is a poetic device in which identical or similar concluding syllables in different words are repeated. Rhyme most often occurs at the end of poetic lines. The purpose of rhyme is to create sound patterns in order to emphasize certain words and their relationship. Nursery rhymes are great examples, and here are a few. Second last, sibilance. Sibilance is a poetic device where strongly stressed consonants create hushing and hissing sounds using lips and tongue. The purpose of sibilance is to captivate an audience with soothing sounds. Check out the example and see if you can hear those stressed consonant sounds. And the final one, simile. Similes are poetic devices where two essentially dissimilar objects or concepts are compared. They are compared using the words like or as. The purpose of similes is to create an explicit comparison between two things that are different enough from each other such that their comparison appears unlikely. Here are 3 examples. And there you have it, an introduction to 15 poetic devices. As always, remember to hit the like and subscribe button and keep striving to take your writing to the next level.